how do you handle when your kid has incredibly rigid thinking? They get stuck in their own thoughts, in their own ways, in the way that they think things should happen. And then when they go to school, they are incredibly anxious and all of their senses are overwhelmed and overloaded, but they don't know how to speak up for themselves. And so they just shut down. If you are a parent of an autistic child, especially an autistic girl, this is really common. It's something called fawning, where you kind of meld into your surroundings and you don't know how to speak up for what you need. And so today we're going to talk about how do you advocate for a child who struggles to advocate for themselves? How do you get others on board when they tell you that there's nothing left they can do to help you? Today we're going to be talking all about that. I've got an amazing guest, but I want to just let you in on a little secret. I am here with my daughter as well. It's very real life. So my daughter is sitting right there. Hello, hello. She's home from school today, pretty much for a very similar reason. Not feeling school today. And so she's sitting here. And she is doing her doodling, her drawing. So when I switch my camera, you are most likely, let's see, going to see her drawings as well, even though I'll be doodling here. If you see something over here, that is actually my daughter's drawings and doodles that she's doing to kind of calm herself down. So with all that being said, I cannot wait to bring on our guest today. She is a mom who has just had an amazing journey over the last few years helping her daughter, and she's got an amazing story to tell. So I am so excited to bring on Jen. Hello, Jen. How are you?
Hi, Dana. I'm good, thank you. Really excited to be here
I
to share my story
oh,
today.
I know. I am so excited to have you here too. So, just to catch us all up, can you tell us a little bit about your family and who you are?
Right, okay, so I live in Scotland and I have two girls, one who is almost 11. She's the super kid I'm going to talk about most today. And I have another wee girl who just turned 6. Um, Both of them are autistic and have sensory processing disorder. So life has always been a little bit harder, and particularly before I joined CTC to kind of learn lots of strategies to help them. And I used to work as a research scientist. That was my career. But when my eldest daughter was 3, I had to give that up because I was really struggling to get help to look after her, and her anxiety was so high. Even at that age, I was struggling to leave her at daycare and things like that. So for the last sort of 7 years, I've been a stay-at-home mum. Just had to be supporting my kids because I'm married, and my husband, his job was really long hours. He worked away from home for long periods, so I was kind of like on my own most of the time. Um,
Oh,
so yeah, so
yeah.
that's kind
So you're kind of doing it on your own, right? And so,
of.
were your children diagnosed at a young age? Like you've known that you were raising autistic girls for a very long time?
No, so my daughter wasn't actually officially diagnosed until she was 9 with autism, but she was diagnosed as having sensory processing disorder when she was about 8 years old. But she'd been diagnosed at age 5 with high anxiety. So
Mm.
already when school, the school nurse had taken on my concerns and independently of the school tried to get us some help for her anxiety. But I would say things were always kind of a struggle with my eldest ever since she was about 1.5.
Mm.
Things were always challenging.
Can you can you talk to me a little bit about how that was presenting itself, both at home and at school? Because I know that it presented itself very differently when she was around you, someone she trusted, versus school, where the anxiety and sensory processing struggles were even higher. Can you talk to me a little bit about the different ways that this presented itself?
Okay, so at home, what we were having was like multiple daily meltdowns. She would be like non-verbal on the floor, just almost like if she could crawl out of her body, she would, to get relief from her emotions and how she was feeling. I mean, it must have been terrifying for her, and it was scary for me because I didn't know what to do to help her. I felt like I couldn't say or do anything. She couldn't hear me. And this could be over what would seem like a very small thing, like just asking her to do the next step of a routine. But if it wasn't what she wanted to happen or in the order she wanted it to happen in, then she would have these meltdowns. She's got very rigid thinking, so that was quite apparent. Even getting ready to go to school, her sensory processing, getting on the school uniform was unbearable for her. Like the texture of the clothes on her skin. So it'd be like trying her best with our morning routine to get out to school, and she'd be completely melting down and clawing at herself, screaming. It was just terrible to see her in that state. And it would take me a while to kind of calm her and get her to school. And then she'd go to school, and the minute she got in the door, she would act like everything was fine and that she was 100% okay, even though leaving me at the school gate was tough because she has separation anxiety. Like she was always terrified to be away from me. Like I couldn't even leave the room sometimes at home. Like going to the bathroom, like she had to come with me the whole time. She was so afraid to be herself. She just always thought something terrible would happen to me or to her when we weren't together. But like I say, when she arrived at school, she just put on this kind of very fake smile and pretend that she's happy and ready for her day, and as if nothing had happened at home.
Mm. How did that make you
school,
feel? Like, and what was the school's reaction? I mean, were you treated with understanding? Like,
no.
or were you kind of, no? Okay. So what were some of the reactions at school because she was putting on this like fake smile?
Well, for example, when I would take her, so I would take her up to the school door, and her teacher would be mad at me for doing that because she felt like I was kind of mollycoddling my daughter, and that I was the one making the fuss, that my daughter didn't need that support. So I knew that without me walking her to the door, she wouldn't have been able to walk through the door. But of course, the teachers didn't see that because they just saw a big beaming smile. And it was all me, and that I was just too soft and I had to be harder on my daughter. I had to push her more. But they didn't realize everything that had gone before that point and how scared she actually was going in, because they didn't see it at school. She was very kind of well behaved. She would try and fit in with her peer group and do things that she wasn't comfortable with. Like she would just go with the flow because that's what she thought she had to do. And even when she was feeling terrified inside, she wouldn't say to anyone.
Okay. And so, I know that you went and got some help from her, and you didn't get much better suggestions from professionals. You kind of had the opposite of like, nothing's wrong, you're the problem, you're coddling her, you're being too soft, to now you had these professionals, and they kind of went the opposite angle, and that's where they started diagnosing her. But what did they tell you about, you're raising an autistic daughter? Like what did they say your future looked like?
Well, we saw a few psychologists. It took quite a few steps to get to that point. One of the ones that we saw early on, she just kind of said to me her anxiety was really high and that they had tried everything they could with her, like all the methods that they knew, and that she would just always be like that. There was nothing we could do, kind of just to kind of not give up exactly, but just to accept that she would be this person full of fear that couldn't kind of live a normal life. And that was just really sad to hear. It just didn't seem right because I knew all the amazing qualities and skills that my daughter had, and how she could actually be so fearless when she was regulated and happy.
Yeah.
Like she is a gymnast and competes at national level. Like she's fearless. And woman, the OT that diagnosed the sensory processing disorder, said that made sense because when she's moving, she's regulated and she's happy. And
Mm-hmm.
all teens are very rigid and set, so she follows them to the exact T of what she should be
Mm-hmm.
doing. So I knew how fearless and that my daughter had potential. It was just really sad to hear that psychologist initially saying, well, we've done all we can, it's kind of your problem now. Wasn't very
Yeah.
supportive.
So how did you, I mean, because that's not what life is like now, right? Like it's
No.
not that the school thinks that there's no problem and psychologists are saying we can't help you. So talk to me a little bit about what life looks like now.
Well, it's completely different. She doesn't have these multiple meltdowns anymore because we've worked really hard with her, and actually she watched a lot of your Super Kids Saturday shows as well to let her understand her own sensory system and that she can make a plan of what to do when she gets overwhelmed. Um, so we've managed to make ahead of the moment plans so we can predict sometimes that she kind of needs some movement to regulate or do something else, like she'll chew gum or she'll find a quiet place, so that we can prepare in advance. We can make a plan of how to
Mm-hmm.
help her before she needs to go to school, um, or when she needs to go somewhere that's new, because that was also a problem before. She was too scared to go to new places, but she can
Mm.
kind of take on her stride now, which is just fantastic. And also at school, now that they know that she's autistic, and they are more likely to kind of listen and show support now because they kind of have to show support.
Mm.
Um, we've gone to them with Kaitlyn's list. She made her own list of what
Yeah.
she needs, makes her feel better. And she understood that she doesn't have to pretend anymore, that if she's uncomfortable, it's much more important that she says what's wrong and that
Mm.
someone will support her or help her if she needs that at school.
That's awesome. All right. So she's getting support. She's speaking up. She knows her needs,
Yeah.
and they're aware of her needs. Awesome. So I'm running out of room because there's just so much goodness here. So, those of you that are watching, if you've got a child and you know that they are an amazing child, or maybe you believe they're an amazing child, but you just can't get others to see it, or you can't even get them to see it, I want you guys to hear what Jen's saying here. Like, you didn't change her, you helped her become more aware of who she was so she could make plans to get her needs met, right? It's not that we're trying to shut down these needs so that when she goes to school, she can just ignore them, right? Like, we're
Yeah.
trying to help her be more successful as who she is. So I just want to make sure that that's really clear. I think you're saying that in a really clear way. I just want to make sure anyone that's jumping in now and hearing that this is about helping her advocate for herself. So I'm actually going to switch the page because I think this is a magical transformation, right? Of like going from constant meltdowns at home, shut down, stuck in overthinking, fighting over clothes, being, having this massive separation anxiety at school, but acting fine and being well behaved at school, to now being able to get support at school, speaking up for her needs, being aware and others being aware of her needs, to also being confident in who she is and what she needs, having plans ahead of time for overwhelm, predicting what she's going to need, and then also, again, being aware of her needs. So can we talk about how you went from this life up here to where we are now? I believe you did that by creating these ahead of the moment plans and an advocacy plan. Can you talk to me about a couple of the steps it takes, or that you went through to go from those constant meltdowns and fawning to this confident, advocating little girl she is now?
Well, 100% it started for us with joining CTC.
Mm.
Um, and it was the first time she could actually see her superpowers. Like, she could use her rigid thinking actually as part of her strength, because if she decides that she is going to do something and achieve something, she will do it, and she will do whatever it takes to get there. And it's the same with having her sensory processing disorder. If she didn't have that high need and desire to move, she wouldn't be the fantastic gymnast that she is. So for her, the big thing was her to actually see that there was nothing wrong with her. She wasn't a broken child who was weird. I mean, she was getting bullied at school because, you know, she was anxious, and eventually she couldn't hold it together anymore. And before she was diagnosed autistic, you know, she did shut down, and she was then showing her behaviour at school too. So it was really nice for her just to see that she was actually, you know, a regular person who was just struggling, but that she could actually do something to make herself better. But it started with her beginning to understand what her needs were, like what was happening in her body, so that she could predict and understand that she was struggling and needed to do something. Key, so at school, she's able to go to her teachers and she's made a file for them, which is amazing, of the things that, like, what she will look like if she's fidgety, or if her eyes start to go really wide, or if she's cracking her knuckles. That's a sign for the teacher to know that she's beginning to struggle. So they have like a box school that she has selected, sort of sensory toys and other objects that work for her, because obviously, you know, you can't just throw any sensory toy at the, it has to be specific. So getting your child to know what they need is so important. You can't just guess, or you can't just say, well, here's a fidget cube, feel better. You know, it kind of doesn't work that way. So she's had to develop a really strong understanding of what she needed to feel better, so that she could write this in a plan to have for her teacher. And then the teacher will get close to her, they'll have a chat, they'll talk about things, and she'll get time and space to go and use whatever it is to calm down, or she gets to go for a movement break around the school, things like that. From our side as parents, obviously we had to do a lot of advocacy. We had to speak to the school to explain to them about masking and autism, because a lot of the time this is missed in girls because they do pretend like everything's okay. And once they kind of could dig beneath the surface and look at her behaviours at school, they could see that actually she was highly anxious. She wasn't able to make eye contact with them and things like that. She wasn't able to focus on her work, and that they would need to step in and support her.
Did you teach them how to look under the surface, or did they know?
Well, no, we had to explain all that. We talked a lot about what we'd learned in CTC, and how for them to realise that, you know, she wasn't just refusing to do something. It's because she didn't have the capacity anymore. I think people underestimate how exhausting it is for autistic children to hold it all together at school in this environment that will really overstimulate their senses, that her brain is working 100 times harder than everyone else's just to cope. And for them to understand the fatigue that it causes, and that they need more regular breaks, and that the expectation had to be lower on her, even though she seemed capable, or more capable than she actually was, that wasn't the case. So it took a lot on our part to kind of to get them to see that she had these extra needs, but that if they just did or followed her lead, that she would be able to cope with it, and that she would be okay.
So first you like explain kind of this masking and the fatigue and like what you've learned about your daughter and her needs and kind of just the science behind it. And then you help them understand how to get under the surface. Was there anything you needed to do to get them on board with this plan?
Well, I mean, so what we've actually organised for her at school is actually something that's very, very rare. So it's called Flexi School. And we basically had to pull together reports from the psychologists, the ones who did diagnose her as being autistic. They were really helpful. They made a whole profile about Kaitlyn and all of her needs. And we had the OT report who described Kaitlyn's sensory needs. And we just kind of had to put it forward to them that this child can do well, really well, when she has things in you know, set out in a way that supports her. So if we can reduce our expectations of time spent in school down to
Mhm.
just 3 days rather than 5, and then homeschool her the rest of the time, then she is actually keeping up perfectly well with her peers at school because she can handle that.
Mhm.
More than that, you would lose almost everything. Like, they can't keep pushing her and expect
Right.
her to keep, going in more because it was too tiring for her. And I think because they've let us try that, they've seen that actually that works and that Kaitlyn is functioning so well. And actually, the teacher herself says that she's such a benefit to the class and all of her peers because Kaitlyn has all these amazing skills. And she's like, where did you learn this from? Like, how do she understands when other kids are having a hard time and actually she will go and sort it out before the teacher will. So she's now supporting everyone at school. It's amazing.
Oh my goodness gracious, that's amazing.
Like, she can diffuse fights in the classroom. She can get everyone to listen. She negotiates. I mean, this is all stuff that she's learned from us as a family using the CTC framework and from watching the Super Kids Saturday that you do.
That's
So
awesome.
just by seeing for themselves, like listening to us saying, if you just do this, you'll be great, and they've seen that actually come to light, then they're happier to go along with the plan.
That's awesome. So let me make sure that I have this plan in place correctly. So it sounds like you started with getting her to realize that she's not broken, she's not weird, getting her to recognize her struggles are actually her superpowers, that her rigid thinking is like her ability to persevere and stick with things, and her sensory like sensitivities are her like awareness and how attuned she is to things. And then hold on. And then my daughter just called me her teacher's name. And then from there, she had to recognize like what she needs and when.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And sorry, my daughter was trying to tell me something. So she made a plan of what she needs, and then she like negotiates, not really the right word, but she advocated for herself for what she needed. When I do this, then can I have this, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. The teacher's got a plan that Kaitlyn has made with her for
yeah.
different. Yeah.
Okay. And then was there anything else that she needed to do at school to kind of get her needs met? And then we'll come down to what you've done. But her knowing her own, that she's not broken. Second is what she needs and related to how that looks in her own body. So it's a lot of like self awareness. Then it was that
Mm-hmm.
self advocacy of speaking to the teachers. Did she need to practice, or did she need to do anything to get the teachers on board, or were they pretty on board because of the work you were doing behind the scenes?
I think, yeah, I mean, she also had to practice this a lot.
Mm,
It's a lot for her to break out of that masking of I'm not okay and admitting that, even if it's just the teacher. But she's still kind of sensitive to showing that side of herself sometimes to her peer group. So yeah, a lot of practice. And actually, I think we were very fortunate with the teacher that she currently has, who actually has an understanding of autism. So this is the first time ever that we've had the level of support that we have, just because we had someone who was a bit more sympathetic and had a bit more understanding. So she was happy to go along with Kaitlyn's plan and help her implement it when Kaitlyn was
mhm.
struggling like when she could see that there was something going on, and then they'd get the plans out together, and then Kaitlyn was able just to point. So if she wasn't able to verbalize what was wrong, she could point at like pictures. So they made like visual charts as well for Kaitlyn, or that Kaitlyn drew, I should say. So Kaitlyn could just point if she wasn't able to say.
I love that so much. And so even if if she wasn't able to verbally communicate, she was still very well able to communicate her needs and wants, which is awesome. And I love that you got a teacher on board. So let's talk about, right, just as a recap, in order to get the other teachers on board. So this is, the parent advocacy. The top part is this child advocacy, is that you had to educate, right? The first part
Yeah.
was just educating.
Yes.
And then the second part is that you kinda had to, like, be their guide on the side. So you kinda had to like, um, I don't know the best way because this wasn't just educating. This was almost being like, this was being that advocate here, right? Of being like, okay, but I need you to look below the surface here. Let me show you how, right? So you were
Yeah,
educating and then you were advocating. And then here, you're really like thinking outside of the box and you're collaborating with not just the one teacher, but as many people as you can. And you're creating that team together. And so
yeah.
here, I think, we could say that you are collaborating or communicating. So I think this is is there anything that I missed here on how a parent can advocate for their child's needs at school?
I think you just have to be very confident that you know your child better than
Mhm.
anyone, and you need to find what is possible. What are they willing to provide for you? Just use that team approach. Like I said, we got all the information from everyone and presented it all, and basically said, "This is our situation. This is what we are asking for. What can you provide for us?" And then what they couldn't do or weren't willing to do, we just talked about it until we met in the middle somewhere, or got to a
Yeah.
point where it was something that we were comfortable with, or we felt we can work with Kaitlyn to build up some skills to be able to do what the school needed her to do. And also, yeah, educating the school, like you say, to look for needs.
Hmm. Yeah, this is amazing. This is so cool. And what are some of the ripple effects of not just, and so, I mean, I've got so many places we could go, but I also know you've got to go soon. So, what are just some of the ripple effects and big wins that you have, that have come from this for Kaitlyn or for your family, out of being able to advocate and, for herself and you being able to advocate for her?
Wow, I wouldn't even know where to start. There's so many wins. Like I just that she now wants to become an advocate for autistic girls. She wants them to see their superpowers, and that it's not about the struggle, it's about empowerment. There is a way, and that's where her rigid thoughts are going to see her through, because she is passionate about doing this, and she's just so wonderful with people. And she's sorting out other people's problems now, like the girl who had shut down and couldn't cope at all, and now she'll come and say to me, "Oh, today at school, mum, so and so are having a really hard time." She'll not come and say, "Oh, they were acting really mean or terrible." She instantly knows they were having a hard time, and she helps people understand what's going on. So now people go to her for help, and I just think it's great that she's had those skills. She doesn't have as many meltdowns now, and she's aware when she does have one, well, what could I have done different to prevent me getting to that point? And she'll go back and try and analyze it with me and think, well, if I had done this sooner, or if I'd done that, then this wouldn't have happened. It wouldn't have impacted me. So I just think it's about the skills that she's got now. I mean, it's just huge. And the fact that she's teaching it to other people. And I think that's what this is all about. We're all learning from each other and using our differences to support each other.
Mm.
Work so much better as a family. Like my husband, like he knows how to handle the meltdowns as well now. If they ever occur, before he didn't know what to do because she would only let me deal with her. I was her only safe person. Now she's got other people that she feels safe with. And so we just kind of work better as a family. And we're just committed to doing things differently. We're not afraid that we've had to ask the school system to do something different just because that's not the done thing. It's like, well, can you do it? What's possible? And now we've created this Flexi School pathway that she's doing. She's about to move to high school, and it's never been done before in our region. And the great thing is, it's paving the way for others who are like her. There's a raised awareness, and that's what's so important. The school are more aware, and I know from other people in my community that they're getting more support because of what we've been through, and that's just awesome that we can help other people going forward too.
That's amazing. I mean, the ripple effect is huge, and you said that uh, some of your friends come to you and they're like, "Okay, we gotta talk to Jen, like, I need to talk to her because my kid's struggling," and you said this hasn't really been part of, the the norm or the culture where you are. And I think so often we get stuck with, well, they don't have that, they can't do that. And so I'd love for you to just speak to that real fast before we go. If there's someone who's watching this and they're like, well, that must be nice. She was able to get a team to get on her page or whatever. Like she must have a really receptive team. But I've watched her journey and I know that wasn't the case. And so what would you say to someone who is like, well, I don't think there's any options for my kid. How am I going to get my kid what they need?
I think it's just having that open and curious mindset of just what is possible and just ask. You don't know what's possible until you ask. Like our school weren't supportive at first because they didn't know or understand. So if you can open up their understanding, then it's amazing what they can do for you when they know. There's never
Mhm.
any harm in asking. And like I say, just remember it's your child, you know them best, you know what they need the most, and
Mhm.
just try and get that across to them, and talk about how great your kid is as well. It's not always about like the struggles and how they're not coping. It's like, well, they cope really well if we do this. How about we try this? It's just
Mm.
trying to always, yeah, just broaden people's view and their horizon of what you can do, and don't give up. I know
I
so
love that. And
many people who give up.
if they get a no, what would you say? Like, let's say they do all of that and then the school is like, "No, we can't do that." Because you've gotten plenty of no's. What would you say, to kinda keep them going on those no days?
That just that's it. That today it was a no. It doesn't mean in the future that it'll keep being a no. If you
Mm,
have lots of support from other people like occupational therapists or other professionals who do see the struggle, you can present that information to them as well and say, well, they recommend that you do this, so why can't we give it a try? And I think it's just keep asking, and then if you can go with plans like we did, then the emphasis is taken off the school. They don't need to do the extra work because my daughter's already done the hard part. She's coming with plans that she has made, and it's like, well, just give this a try, let her do this and see what happens, and it's not affecting anyone else. So actually it's a benefit because then other children in the class are using the same strategies, and then you've got a happier class who are doing better. So yeah,
yeah, that's amazing. That's
hope that.
amazing. Well, this has just been so phenomenal. I see Jenny in the comments saying, like, you and your daughter have both come such a long way. Very impressive advocacy, and I agree. I mean, I teared up multiple times during this chat. Just a beautiful, and I've even talked with your daughter.
Yeah.
Because she was, I think, the most loyal fan of Super Kids Saturday when we were doing that. And I remember when I didn't do one day because of some things happening here in the United States, and she let me know all about
Mm.
it. And so, but which was so amazing. I was able to see her advocate, and that was what you were working on at the time, is her advocating and standing up for what she wants and needs. And it was really beautiful. So thank you. Thank you for sharing this story with all of us. Is there anything on your mind that you'd like to say that I haven't asked you about?
Um, like in terms of advocacy in particular, or
Yeah, for anyone who might be listening right now that is raising a child with rigid thinking, or who's raising a child who they see one thing at home and something different at school, or maybe they're getting the like, it's your fault, you're coddling them, you're being too soft, or maybe they're getting the opposite of there's nothing we can do, you're just stuck with this. So just anything really, like for the person who is listening right now, is there anything that you would like to share with them?
I guess it's just really about trusting yourself and trusting your instincts, and always just remembering that yes, like rigid thinking can be a struggle, but just to see the flip side, the superpower, and focus in on the superpowers rather than the struggles, and see
Mm.
where you can get. And yeah, just to not give up. Don't give up hope. Things change. If you use these strategies, you can definitely empower your child, and you could be surprised at how well they do and how much they come into their own. So yeah, there are hard days, always find the positives. That's what I would say, always. And just remember that was just today, and don't let that kind of spill over to the next day. So yeah, I
That's
think
beautiful.
I think that's
Yeah.
kind of all I say. Just trust the connection with your child. Always let them know that you believe in them, no matter what, because they feel so bad they don't believe in themselves, and you've really got to be their kind of biggest supporter. Keep connecting with them, because that's the most important thing, is that relationship between you two, and you can sort out the rest.
Yeah, I
So
love that so, so much, and, it's such beautiful advice, and, for anyone who, is looking for a way to advocate for their kid, or they're looking for, a way to help their kid advocate for themselves, we do have our 7 Days to Less Chaos workshop coming up very soon, and we will be covering the different types of out-of-the-box plans, and so we invite you to join us on that. That's something that Jen will be in, and she'll be there. You'll see her. And the whole team will be there helping you along the way. And it is free. So if you need an out of the box plan, just write, I need a plan in the comments. We will be sure to get you that link so that you can sign up for the 7 Days to Less Chaos free workshop coming up really soon. So for everyone here, if you are raising a kiddo who is out of the box, who is feeling broken, is feeling weird, know that they are not broken, they are not weird, that they are exactly who they are designed to be and meant to be. And they just need one person in their life who can see that the same way that Jen has seen that for her daughter, and you can be that person. So just lean in here. Let us know, I need a plan, and we will be here to support you. So you guys are amazing, and go forth and conquer your day. Thank you, Jen, so much.